my goodness! Yeah! Holy sh!
Well folks, welcome to another episode of Misfit Toys. Look at what we got here. Seeing as how the last F250 revival went so great, and that's sarcasm, I went and found another. Now, as you might recall, the other one, it actually ran pretty good. It just had no power. It turns out in the end, the engine had no compression. Total dismal failure for me for the amount of hours and time I put into it. But anyway, I initially bought this, found it on Facebook Marketplace. I bought it for the fuel-injected 460 and the 5-speed. It's a two-wheel drive truck, thinking I would pull those out and use them in a project in the future. But that got me to thinking, well, why not? Supposedly it needs a fuel pump. I think it's been sitting about a year, the guy told me. The catalytic converters have been robbed or harvested off of it. But anyway, yeah, it supposedly needs fuel pumps in both the tanks. It doesn't look like a very bad truck, but there is some rust in it. But as I was saying, I thought, why not go ahead and get it running and try to get some use out of it. So you can see there's some rust. You can see clear through to the ground. But overall, not too bad of a truck. Let's see. Mileage was, I guess it's not showing. I think it was like 146,000, I believe. That's kind of a lot of miles, but considering this is a 93, that's not terrible. Should have a lot of life left in it if it's, you know, worth its beans. Even though the truck doesn't really look too bad by my standards, you can tell it's been worked. Look at that bed. That thing, the floor of this bed is absolutely hammered. But as I was saying, I'm going to go ahead and try to get it running, if for nothing else than to evaluate how good the engine and transmission are, and if they're good enough, I might get a couple years use out of this thing before I'm ready to pull the engine and transmission out. I've been wanting to get back into a truck so I could use my gooseneck trailer down there again. So if it does run good, I'll have to pound at least this section of floor out level and go ahead and put a gooseneck ball in it. Yeah, just look at those wheel wells. This thing is just thrashed. I've never seen a bed this bad. So the plan for today, I'm gonna, instead of dropping the tanks, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the bed off, because I'll pull the bed off, do something with the fuel pump. The long side mount tank here isn't a rusty mess. It looks like it's fairly recently been put in, a new one anyway, or pretty good anyway. So it's just gonna be easier to pull the bed to get to that tank instead of dropping it out. But if I'm gonna put a gooseneck ball on it anyway, I gotta take the bed off anyway. So that's getting two birds stoned at once. Now I do have this fuel pump that I already had. I don't remember what the circumstances were for how I have it. Did I order the wrong one? Did I pick this up at a swap meet? I don't know. All I know is this is for some sort of a Ford truck. So we'll see if that works out today once I get the bed off. Now, I can already tell this truck does have its fair share of rust underneath. I am not going to crawl underneath there and try to unthread the bed bolts. It's just a losing game. I'm just going to go in here and grind the heads off all 6 of the bolts in the bed. I might have run into a problem here. As I've gotten the heads ground off of those and tried to drive them on through, they seem like they're only going through the top layer, and then for some reason they're getting stuck. So when it comes to picking the bed up, I might only pick up a couple inches and then get hung up. I guess we'll find out. But right now I need to get the two filler hoses unhooked, and then there should be a wiring harness going to the taillights up in here somewhere, and then it'll be ready to lift off. All right, I found a little surprise under here that I had to share with you. This is exactly how I found it. This is engaged, but there's no clamp on it, either to seal it here or to hold it to the bed. Not that big of a surprise, but check this out. Now I can't show you, I don't think I can show you, but if I reach up in here and feel in there, the rubber hose here is not even engaged to the tank.
Who are these sick people?
It looks like someone put a brand new tank in it at some point. So they just did, I don't know if they didn't finish the job or just did a half-assed job or what. Well, I think I'm just going to leave it the way it is and try to pull the bed off that way. It should just pull the inner vent line right out of the tank. Maybe it doesn't even need a fuel pump. Maybe the last person that put that tank in just didn't finish the job. But this does present an interesting conundrum. There's your big word of the day, conundrum. Because of these bolts not pushing all the way through, at some point, most likely, I know at least these two are, I can physically see them underneath there. Probably the rest of them too. But as I try to lift that bed off, if I can't just force the bed past the bolt heads, I'm going to have to get underneath there and cut what's left of those bolts. Whether it's with a grinder or a torch or what. And now I have an open, exposed fuel inlet down there. This could be a big problem. These two back here should be fairly safe to cut. Those two are easy enough. Okay, so I got this front one up here. It was pretty easy to get to. It's far enough away the sparks weren't an issue. I got the second one, the middle one, right here. After I had to cut a piece of a remnant of rusty exhaust out of the way. Had to hold my hand up in there to guard against throwing sparks towards the tank. And then once I had that piece of exhaust out of the way, that one was pretty easy to get to. Now I can see this one here, but there's just a whole jumble of fuel and brake lines right in that corner of the frame where it's at. And this forward one here on this side, I cannot even see it because the gas tank's in the way. So I got these four here out. I'm just gonna have to force these two here. Whether they pull through the bed or what, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Well, as you saw there, I ganked up the bedside a bit doing it, but it did come free. And that's not like a huge thing. This bed is pretty hashed anyway. Hashed and thrashed. There, you happy? I fixed it. Here's what I'm talking about, how the bed may not even be reusable. This thing has carried so much weight for so long, it's been so abused that the bows, support bows going across the floor, are actually bowed. And looking at them from the side, due to the weight and the rust, they're actually collapsing. But at this point, what I'm going to do is take care of the fuel issue. Get some fuel going to the engine, see how well this thing runs before I put any more time or money into it. That is priority number one. Alright, so here's some more thoughts on this. You know, you'd think I would know this by now, but I don't know if this tube is the actual fill tube or the vent. If that's the fill tube, it actually was down into the tank. It was just this part that wasn't quite attached. There was probably a good inch gap. So if that was the fill tube, you could get gas into the tank, but who knows what else was getting in there in due time as well. If that's just the vent and this was the fill, then yeah, it wasn't getting in there. I don't know if that's going to show anything. Not really. Another thing I found, All these lock tabs were broke on this. I bet when they dropped the tank, they didn't unplug this and they just dropped the tank. And it fell out and broke all these tabs off. So maybe that's why the fuel pump wasn't working. Maybe, yeah, maybe this thing got driven and hit some bumpy roads, and this, yeah, it was about sitting just about like that. So I'm going to put a battery in it, see if I can't get that fuel pump to work. Maybe that was the problem. I doubt it. I don't think I'll be that lucky. And even if I am that lucky, I'm going to have to do something about it so that doesn't happen to me. Which means I'll probably have to go cut a chunk of wiring harness off some other vehicle that has the good locking tab still on it. But anyway, enough yapping. Let's do something. Alright, battery in it. Pretty sure I got the plug pushed on there. I'm going to turn the key on, see if we can get a little noise. Nope, I'm not hearing it. That. There isn't even a grommet in there.
Who are these sick people?
Kind of surprised the seal is actually in there, what I found on this truck so far. Well, I don't have good enough light to see in there, so let's... Oh, yeah, there's definitely a layer of crap on the bottom of this tank. Ah, lovely. So, apparently I'm going to guess this thing was running when he put the tank in it, but this stuff took its toll on it. Looks like I'll be dropping the tank, try to clean that crap out of there somehow. Alright, let's put some power to these terminals. This one is ground. This one's power, this one's the signal for the fuel sending gauge, and this one is nothing. Ground and power. It's buzzing, but it ain't turning. Alright, just for shits and giggles and to be thorough, let's test to make sure I'm actually getting power to the plug. I've got the test light stuck into the hot wire. Oddly enough, the ground wire coming in is orange instead of black, but I got the other side of the test wire grounded to the frame over there. Let's hit the key, see what happens. All right. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, I don't know if other brands are this way, but Ford's, the fuel pump relay, it only comes on for a couple of seconds. Once the engine's running, then it will run continuously. So that's good. So I guess we're going to continue on with the pump being the problem and all the crap in the bottom of the tank now. It would appear that I'm in luck here on this fuel pump. Everything seems to match up. All the ports where the lines go in and out. It looks to me like all I gotta do is take these screws out and all the lines will just pull right out of the pump. And I could try that, but I gotta do something about this tank first, get all that crud out of it. Losing my daylight as usual, so I'm gonna see if I can get this tank out before dark. If that goes well, I might pull the rear tank out just to kind of evaluate it, see if it's rusted out anywhere. If I even want to mess with the rear tank, I might just stick with this tank. Well, here's something else kind of interesting about the fuel system. Those reinforcing ribs on the bottom of the bed have been smashed down so much they have actually pinched these fuel lines shut. At least this one anyway. This one's not quite so bad, but this one is definitely smashed flat. Well, as you're used to hearing from me, it's a couple days later. My batteries went dead last time I was working on this a couple days ago. Let me show you how things panned out before I finished working on it. I did go ahead and pull this tank out, the rear one, even though I'm not sure I was going to use it. Even though it's very rusty looking on the outside, I couldn't find where there was any fuel leaking through. I pulled the pump out, as you can see, tested it. It just made a buzzing noise, just like the front one. Looking inside, the tank is very clean on the inside. Yeah, I mangled the lock ring getting it off because it was so rusty and thin. I don't think I'm going to go to the trouble to reuse this tank. I'll just stick with the front tank if I get that working. Like I said, if I just get a couple years use out of this, that front tank should serve me okay. Plus, if I can't find a plug that I need for the front tank on one of my parts trucks nice and easy, I'll go ahead and salvage the one from back here. And this rubber grommet, I should be able to salvage that to use on the front tank. Plus, yeah, like I already showed you, those lines were just smashed shut anyway. How you doing, Kitty? Kitty ain't been doing so good the last couple weeks. He's got something going on there with his paw. He's been camping out in the shop. Been feeling kind of sickly. Poor guy, he may not make it through the winter. He's gonna roll around the dirt like a happy kitty anyway. You can see what's wrong with his paw now. He won't let me touch it otherwise, hardly. I can't see anything in it. Yep, I understand, kitty. I understand. We're both getting old. Lost our usefulness. Just waiting for the Reaper to come take us. So as far as the front tank goes, trying to scrub in there with that brush with the gasoline, it didn't really accomplish a whole lot. I dumped that out into a bucket. I'll use that for washing parts, and then I put a few gallons of water in it and a pretty healthy shot of Dawn dish detergent. Let it soak for a couple hours, and then I went back in there with the brush, and that did break up that stuff. Not surprisingly, because it was basically mud in the bottom of that tank. I can only reach about this far each way. So this afternoon, I'm going to get in there with the brush again, make sure everything I can reach is still broken up. And then I'm going to take it outside and see if I can't run the pressure washer wand in there and try to break up everything that's left on the sides there. Let's get to it. Okay, so I pressure washed it and dumped it about, I don't know, I lost track, maybe 6 or 7 times at least. Let's check it out. Yeah, feels pretty good in there, nice and clean. From what I can reach anyway. I think what I'll do now is take it back in the shop and stick the shop vac in there. Vacuum up any more water that I can't get to come out and leave it sit for a couple days. And even though it's winter, I'll leave it sitting inside the shop and maybe it'll dry out and we can install it and see what the truck thinks. Well, it is the next day. As you can see, I have the tank reinstalled, got it pretty well dried out, I believe. Did get the fuel pump put on the hanger. Went pretty smooth, no issues there. Now I checked out some of my parts vehicles and I did not have a good plug to replace it, so I just went ahead and salvaged the one from back here. What I am going to do right now before I put the fuel pump in is I'm going to plug it into that and I'm going to turn the key on and make sure the fuel sending unit works. Alright, all plugged in. Float is set down where it should be reading empty. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's not good. It's going full and even beyond. Well, looks like I got a little research to do and try to figure out what's going on here. Okay, so if I've done this right with my ohmmeter here, I'm not getting any conductivity from ground to this. Maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, maybe conductivity, but I'm getting no signal whatsoever on this, no matter where the arm is at. And I just pulled out the rear one and tried it. It also is dead, not doing anything. Even just out of curiosity, I did hook it up to conductivity, and I get nothing out of it no matter where it's at. So, with that in mind, obviously these sending units are both bad. I'll have to get one, but for now I'm going to go ahead and put this in, hook it all up, see if this thing will run. As usual, I'm losing my daylight really rapidly. Alright, got the pump in. I salvaged that sealing grommet from the rear tank. Let's put some fuel in it. Alright, I can hear the fuel pump working, but you know how it is, you should hear it drag down as it pressurizes the system. I wasn't getting that. As you saw, I tried starting it, got nothing. And I just kind of happened to glance back here. Let me show you what I was seeing. Now, I've heard of this before, and years ago my uncle had this problem with the truck he had, where it would just take all the fuel from one tank and pump it into the other. Oh well, I was running out of daylight anyway. I was hoping to at least get it running today. Maybe I will yet. Well, I gave it a quick look over. I don't really see a selector valve like I'm used to seeing on older trucks. It might be up there underneath the cab, I don't know, but it looks like these, I'm running out of light so it's hard to tell. It looks like these kind of tee into another lines that are coming out here, which made me think that maybe there's some sort of a check valve in the pump itself. So I went ahead and plugged this pump back in. Let's see what happens. Hey, it's pressurizing. Can't tell if it's leaking from here, but doesn't seem to be. reason that it had a hard time starting is because when I went to look at this, the guy was pouring gas in the intake tubes to get it to run just on the fumes, and he would pour a lot in there, so maybe the truck was flooded and the plugs were fouled. But I'm gonna see what happens here, shut it off, see if it'll start up again. backfire there. Okay. Not good. Well, that sucks, but I'm running out of daylight, so we're going to have to deal with this tomorrow. Well, it's been about a month since I messed with the truck to any real degree. Had a hell of a snowstorm come through. It has since all melted, everything's dried up, and the weather is absolutely beautiful. It's supposed to be all week. Let's see if we can get something figured out with this truck. Now, the only thing I've done, I got rid of these ridiculous running boards. I don't know how these things ever became a trend. I like to think of them more as white trash ground effects. God, they're awful. Put a mirror on it. I don't know what it is that's causing the problem, but I'm going to change out the fuel filter today. Whether that's the problem or not, I'm sure it needs it. You saw all that crap that was in the gas tank. I'm sure some of it's made its way under the filter. Maybe that'll fix it, maybe not. Let's find out. Well, the filter here does not look like it's been on there since the beginning of time. Usually, this is the output here, or sorry, this is the input. And usually, if you shake them out, you can get some debris out of them. Nice thing about having an old beater truck like this, you've always got a workbench. Yeah, look at all that. Lovely. So I was digging around in this truck yesterday. Had a little time on my hands, not enough time to work on it. But anyway, I found quite a few old registrations in it, underneath the floor mat of all places. Now these registrations lead me to believe that this thing has not been on the road since 2010, which is a lot longer than I was led to believe by the guy I bought it from. But, you know, how trustworthy can the guy be when he even told me the work he did on the fuel tank, and we all saw the quality of work there. But anyway, I don't know how long this thing's been off the road. Yeah, possibly 14 years. Nice and snug in there. Not the worst fuel filter I've ever had to change, but not the best either. Things get a little tight back in here because of the gas tank in the way. But she's done now. Now, seeing as how this thing might have potentially been parked for up to 14 years, it's kind of looking like the signs show that that is a possibility based on the sheer amount of dust inside the engine compartment. The bed, I didn't show you when I first brought it home, had an unbelievable layer of leaves in the back. And while the mice haven't really chewed up the interior, I'm finding mouse nest in places that would indicate that, yeah, this thing has been parked for a while. I bought it in a big city, so yeah, maybe there was enough cats around to keep the mice kind of tamed down. But I'm kind of believing the at least, 10, 14 year range here at this point. And I've never really checked a lot of the normal stuff you'd check on a vehicle that's been parked a long time, because I was told it was only parked about a year. But looky there. Pretty crusty. Cat, you're all dirty. Let me help you brush off there. Now the oil was pretty good. Dirty, but good, level-wise. The brake fluid looks pretty good too. Anyway, I'm yapping long enough. Let's get the battery hooked back up, see if that fuel filter helps. I don't think it will, but I hope I'm wrong on that. this warms up a little, I'm going to go ahead and put some antifreeze in here. I'm going to take the lid off the air cleaner, make sure there's not a mouse nest in there. Got a bit of a problem here. As you can see, it's leaking. I was thinking anyway, I was going to go ahead and cut these lines off and then smash them shut. We'll get to that in a minute. Nice clean filter. Well, I'd say things are going pretty good so far this afternoon. I'm going to take care of those leaking fuel lines back there. I don't foresee me ever putting a rear tank back in this. I think I mentioned before, this is just going to be a cheap tow rig, get me by until I'm ready to pull this engine transmission out and put in another potential future project I got my eye on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this old fuel pump module that was hanging back there. I'm just going to cut these off right here, bend them over a couple times, smash them flat, and put them right back in the lines. Now this gives me the option later on, like I said, I don't believe I ever will, but if I did ever want to put another rear fuel tank in it, it gives me the option to do that. I'm not destroying the lines that are already there. Basically all I would have to do is buy a whole new module like this and get rid of my plugs and plug it in, put the gas tank in, all that crap. Sometimes options are a really good thing, even if you don't think you're ever going to use that option. And you know, I got to smash some lines down anywhere and plug it up. It just as well be these. This thing's worthless as it is. Alright, here's the finished result. I would have bent them over one more time, but at the last moment, right before I bent this one over, I realized I had to leave room to get the tool in there if I ever need to get this out. If they still leak, I will just remove them and trowel a bunch of JB weld inside them. Thanks, Aaron. I think I'm done for this today. As you can see, Aaron's here with a big old trailer. Monty will be here too. Last weekend we went and picked up a bunch of 2-inch roll cage tubing, and now they're here to divvy them up. You run over my kitty? She's a leaker. All right, there's the finished result. Just gotta let it cure now. All I did was mixed up some JB weld and just kind of troweled it on in there with a little screwdriver. It didn't really surprise me any that these lines leaked. It's kind of hard to smash stainless steel line down good enough to get it to seal. Anyway, that's all for today because I need to go find somewhere to squirrel away all this roll cage tubing I just bought. Roll cage tubing means roll cage for the M151. And for the 76 Bronco. And maybe my daughter's Green Explorer. No, no, no. All right, it is the next afternoon. I grab my little plugs here, plug them in, but I got something else to show you that is a bigger problem at this point. Now, when I left this yesterday afternoon, the radiator was topped off. Nothing. The ground's wet underneath there, and I did find a drip. It seems to be coming from the water pump, whether it's the weep hole or leaking somewhere else. Doesn't matter. It's a leak. So let's go ahead and put these plugs in, give that a try, and then tear into that. I think that'll work. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of zip time to this cross member and call that part done. Before I get started on that water pump, I just wanted to try this. A few days ago, I had a truck I was pulling the bed off of, and I went ahead and dropped the gas tank and pulled this sending unit out. And messing around with my multimeter, it seems to be doing something. So I decided to plug it into this, see if it'll work. Okay, well hey, that's a good sign. It's already going to empty, where before it was already full. Here, all right, looks like we got a worker. I'll go ahead and put that in first before I tackle this big job of getting that water pump off. As you people that are familiar with Fords know, you got to pretty much pull everything off the front of the engine to get to the water pump on these. Alright, now this sending unit was from a rear tank, so the arm was shaped differently, so I had to do a little bit of tweaking. I basically straightened it out right here where it had a bend in it, and straightened this out somewhat. It's like my range of movement ought to be pretty decent there. This is going to save me, I don't know, anywhere from 60 to 80 bucks, depending on where you go shopping for one of these. So yeah, if it's off a little bit, I'll take it for those kind of savings. Well, it's all back together, and it's telling me I have a little over half a tank in there, and I know that ain't true because there's only about 5 or 6 gallons in there. But you know what? It's better than not knowing anything. I'll just have to take my gauge reading with a grain of salt. Try to be a little more generous with my fuel stops. Alright folks, it's been another couple of weeks. As you can see, I've made some changes to the truck. I ran out of time last time I was working on it to film. It was getting dark, but I wanted to take this thing for a quick drive to diagnose, or evaluate would be a better word, whether this was a viable candidate to keep going. I'm happy to say the transmission shifted fine, the engine did fine, it drove okay. It was kind of, really hard to judge it because, yeah, it's tractionally challenged back here with absolutely no weight whatsoever on the rear tires. You didn't miss out on much. It was just a quick little test drive, couple miles. I was so satisfied with it, I guess. I went ahead and got rid of the old poverty caps and tires and rims that were all dry rotted anyway. I've got these two 65-75 16s on here with the old classic white spokes. Nice improvement, I believe. As you can see, I've pulled the front bumper off. I've got another one I'm going to put on it. It's a little rusty on the edges, but it's got the holes in the center. Let more airflow through it, seeing how this is going to be pretty much exclusively a tow rig. Now I'm working on it this afternoon, getting that water pump issue taken care of. I've got a new water pump here. Also, oh yeah, some spring perches for the rear. The front ones aren't too bad. As you can see, the rear ones get pretty nasty. Right, kitty? Come here, you. Yeah, you're feeling better, ain't ya? Anyway, back to the water pump. Everything's going pretty well this afternoon, but I knew I was going to most likely run into trouble with probably these bolts here, maybe a couple on the other side, where the bolt goes through this aluminum timing chain housing. Those will seize up pretty commonly. I'm guessing that's what I'm going to run into. But I've already kind of run into that problem with the alternator. The bolt that runs through here is seized into that aluminum. Now, give me some room here, cat. There's the air pump there. I'm going to eliminate that because there's no catalytic converter underneath there anyway. Even if there would have been one, I would have took it off. But that's beside the point. That's going bye-bye. If I'm not mistaken, I believe all this, the alternator, the air pump, and everything should come off with one bracket. So I'll get that off of there, and then I'll deal with this. And I might even convert this over to a 3G like I do with everything else. Got the air pump, alternator off with the bracket, just like the plan went. I spent, the last hour getting all this emissions crap off. I don't know why I'm the way I am. You guys that have been watching my channel know I'm not by any stretch of the means, any stretch of the definition, imagination. Man, I just cannot come up with a cohesive, there's your big word of the day. Cohesive sentence here. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a perfectionist. But when it comes to taking emission stuff off, I obsess over it. Even though I had it all cut back to where it was pretty much out of my way and was never, what was left wasn't really going to be in my way, I still went the extra mile, like this piece right here. That's the line that used to run down to the catalytic converter. It was underneath the truck, and yeah, I had it cut back to here. It was likely never ever going to be in my way, but by God, I had to have that off of there. Now I did draw the line at these two bobbers there. Those are, I'm pretty sure, like a one-way check valve, and they tap right into the top of the exhaust manifold, so they were extremely hard to get to. So yeah, I let those go. The one-way check valve, those would only let air flow in to flow into the manifold. It should not let anything flow back out, so it should be okay. All that other crap was right in here and down here. It would have hindered my ability to get to the spark plugs. Anyway, now that that's all done, we get after this water pump, see how many of these bolts turn into a disaster. Alright, this is actually good news. The 3 bolts I've pulled so far came out pretty easy, even though their threads are crusty. If you see this one, it's got red RTV on it, which means this water pump has been off at some point. It's not the original. So that's good news as far as, yeah, these bolts have not been sitting in there since '93. Well, I got a little too excited over nothing. The very next bolt I tried getting out here was seized up. All the rest of them have come out just fine. I'll try hitting that with my little propane torch before I drag the big one out here. Maybe that'll be enough to get the job done. I'll heat it up right down in here where that bolt passes through that aluminum housing. So I'm guessing that's where it's seized up. Well, folks, this wasn't enough. It is moving a little. At this point, you know the drill. Keep moving it back and forth. You'll keep gaining a little bit more each time. Now the pump, based on the impeller, does not look like it's been in there forever. Yeah, look at, clear down in there, it looks nice and clean. But looking at the bottom weep hole, looks like there's definitely some residue there where it's been leaking. Now, I hate to do this, but I think it's a good idea at the time. I think I'm not going to do it today. I'm running out of time, but I think I'll pull the bottom balancer off and pull this entire cover off and reseal that. Especially after hitting it with the torch right there. I probably cooked the hell out of the gasket in that area. Yeah, this has that, I don't know, from what I'm told, this is a really unusual oil cooler on these 460s. I might just delete that. I had a truck years ago. I deleted that, mostly just because simplicity. It would be a real MFer to get in there and get that short little hose replaced out on the road if it blew out or something. Well, now as you can see, I got it in the shop. It's supposed to be windy here for the next few days, to my knowledge. And I got the front timing cover off, so I didn't want a bunch of dust getting blown in here. Timing chain is not as bad as some of them I've seen, but I went ahead and ordered one. And while I'm waiting for the timing chain and the gaskets to come in, let's go ahead and tackle these rear shackles and hangers, shall we? Now the kits I bought got the spring hanger, shackle, and a bushing for the leaf spring. Ooh, what do you think you're doing? Fine, fall down then. Anyway, I'm going to let this bushing burn out whilst I remove the bracket from this side. Alright, got the new bushing here. Let's see, looks like yeah. If I'm seeing it right, I do need to get rid of that sleeve that's left over in there. By going in there and splitting them in half, they come out much, much easier. Alright folks, there it is. It's all done. Anyway, I'm out of time for today. Not out of daylight, just got other things that I'm scheduled to do. We'll get back to this tomorrow and get some more stuff done on this underneath. It would just be a lot better without the bed in the way. Well, you probably think I'm just changing the fluid in this, but I am not. I've got here a True Track limited slip that I bought at a swap meet, probably 6 or 7 years ago. It was so cheap I had to buy it. And now finally the day has come, I'm going to do something with it. There's a lot of people out there like, oh my god, I gotta have a 4-wheel drive for a tow rig. Not me. I do not need 4-wheel drive to tow my trash down a paved road. If the weather's bad enough that I need 4-wheel drive, I don't need to be out there pulling a trailer anyway. But having said that, there are places where I have to park, like where we go wheeling over by Knoxville. It's a grass field. Sometimes it's muddy. Yeah, there's times 4-wheel drive does come in handy. You know, though, in those situations, there's usually plenty of 4-wheel drives around to give me a hand when I do need it. To me, 4-wheel drive is just more components to wear, more things to go wrong, and more parasitic drag coming from your drivetrain. Yeah, this limited slip, that should help a little bit in those muddy situations. It's not, you know, as good as 4-wheel drive, but it'll do. I've been saving this thing for years. This is as good a thing to put it in as any. As a nice little side note, this axle is geared 410, which is kind of unusual for a 2-wheel drive, in my opinion. One more thing that'll make it a pretty decent tow rig. Anyway, I got plenty of other things to do. I'm going to go ahead and let this drain for a while I work on some other stuff. Then we'll come back and yank it all apart. I totally said yank it. Alright, getting ready to pull the carrier out. Now, I don't recommend doing it this way. I'm not a professional at setting up ring and pinions, but I've had pretty good luck doing it this way. Now, obviously, when I'm putting that differential in, I'm not messing with the depth of the pinion at all. All I'm messing with would be the side to side of the ring gear. So because of that, that's all I have to worry about is the, I don't know the technical terms, backlash, I guess. So I've had good luck doing this, like when I put a spool in a 9-inch or something like that. Just get an idea of how much backlash was in it to begin with. This one's actually pretty damn tight for a truck of its age. Now I can crank more out of it, like that, but that obviously makes the ring gear move. All I'm getting is slop in the rest of the axle. I don't want that. I want it to, I don't know if it's picking up the little clunk I'm making, but yeah, the ring gear is not moving, not from what I'm seeing anyway. Yeah, it's pretty damn tight, really. Get out of the way, kitty. Nice thing about these Sterling axles is they don't take a gasket or any kind of steel on her. There's a nice O-ring right in there. Mark your caps before you remove them if they're not already marked. I'm not seeing anything on these ones. Now, it's been my experience with these Sterling axles and with Ford 8.8s, they typically don't come with a bunch of smaller shims. You just get some larger, thicker ones, just like this. And I've had really good luck with Sterlings and 8.8s, just reusing the shims with whatever I've done, slap it back in, and it's good. So we're going to try that this time. If it doesn't work out, I'm going to have to source some different spacers. I just want to take a moment to point out, unlike Dana's, I'm not saying is always the case, but I've never run into an 8.8 or a Sterling that had the little shims between the bearing and the carrier. Anyway, now I got some part scrubbing to do, scrub up the ring gear, and I've got all the stuff to do the water pump, so I need to scrub up the timing chain cover housing too. So that's probably going to finish out my day. All right, it is actually not just the next day, but a couple days later, as you can see. I've got it back in there. I didn't figure I needed to show this. It's just the reverse of what I already did to get it out. Plus, you really didn't need to see all the huffing and puffing and pinched fingers and cursing of me wrestling that heavy bitch in there. But anyway, it's all snug down. Let's check the preload. Yeah, that's... Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It might be just a little bit more than it was, but that might be because the ring gear has been all cleaned off and there's no layer of gear oil on it, creating a little bit of a cushion. But yeah, I'm real pleased with that. What do you think, Kitty? So as I was putting it all back together, I went to hook the drive shaft up, and yeah, that U-joint back here at the pinion seemed pretty dry and grabby. Here's what I found when I pulled one of the caps off. So one more thing to add to the list. Alright folks, it's yet another day. on the project tow rig here. I got the rear end all buttoned up. Was hoping to slam the water pump on today. Now initially I was trying to have all my ducks in a row here. I got all the bolt threads cleaned up, got the cover cleaned up, got the seal in it, got the timing chain on. Let's see, I think I got that for about $60 at Rock Auto. It's a Cloys. Here's the part number, if it'll focus. There we go, and it's made in America. Good job, Cloys. But anyway, unlike the factory original one, this one has the 3 settings in the crank sprocket. I went ahead and ran this advanced to hopefully, in theory, enhance the low end torque. But anyway, as I was saying, I was trying to have everything prepped so I could just slam it all together with no surprises. Well, here's a surprise right here. I was cleaning up the back plate. It is rusted through in a couple spots, so now that the stove over there is settled into its pace, I'm going to go look around and see if I don't have another one of these stashed away somewhere. Well, I couldn't find a loose plate anywhere, so I had to revert to pulling one off of this old turd that you might remember. I put so much work into this and it disappointed me. It's in good shape, as you can see. A little rusty, but solid. Good thing about this, I also needed the lower radiator hose. I'll be putting on that one. Probably in a day or so I'll be coming up to get that oil filter fitting too. Now, I don't know if it will actually fit, but if it will, this radiator looks to be in much better shape than the one that's on that gray truck up there. So that's an extra bonus there. Plus, if I ever do decide to try to resurrect this truck again by doing an engine swap on it, I'm that much closer by having all that crap out of the way. Alright, got it all cleaned up, took the wire wheel to it. Normally, I don't like to use RTV along with gaskets, but well, this is leaps and bounds better than the other one. As you can see, it's pitted enough that, yeah, I'll be doing that. And with that in mind, I'm out of time. Like I said, I wanted to do this all together. Timing cover, water pump, get everything slammed together and tightened down while the RTV is still nice and soft and sealing. So yeah, I used the rest of my day to go ahead and salvage a few more parts off that truck that I might use for this. And I'm going to call it a day, and we'll get back out here tomorrow, see if I can't get this together then. Hopefully I got everything ready now, I do believe. But I thought that today as well. Alright, it's the next day. I think I've got everything prepped, ready to start putting stuff together. Got all the water pump bolts all smeared up with anti-seize. This one here is let me get back up here. Got this all gasket in place, got a nice dollop of sealant on the corners. Got the little gaskets in there. Of all these bolt holes, this one here goes through into the water passage. I took a little screwdriver and some RTV and just kind of troweled it into the threads. That is also a concern with this bolt. I left the very end of it uncoated with anti-seize, and I'll smear some RTV sealant on that as well right before I put it in. Got the oil filter adapter in place. Figured that'd be easiest to do that while everything else was out of the way. Got it all scrubbed up first. But anyway, my RTV is drying. I need to get on this. Alright, I had to do 2 attempts at this. The first time as I was tightening it down, I noticed this part of the gasket right here, the little rubber part that goes underneath around the oil pan loopy, I guess you'd call it. It had popped out, so I had to take it all off and do it again. Seems like the best way to do this. I've only done maybe 3 or 4 of these in my lifetime. As I was saying, the best way seems to be just to push it in this way and then drop it down in. Get your oil pan bolts in first and then suck it all down into place. But anyway, now with that little delay, my RTV is drying even more. So I'm in a hurry here. I need to get after this. No more yakking. Alright, it's on there. I hope you appreciate that I didn't walk you through every step of this. I mean, it's a water pump. How exciting could that be? I just kind of wanted to hit the high points. I'm feeling a bit apprehensive. There we go. That I got this all in there before the silicone and these dried. But I guess time will tell. I was hoping to get all the accessories on today, but as usual, I'm out of time. I got to go to work here in a little bit. All right, finally got a nice long session out here in the shop. Get out of the way, kitty. And it looks like progress. I got rid of all the AC stuff because it didn't work anyway. I even got rid of the condenser in order to get more airflow through the radiator. As you can see, I did the 3G alternator like I always do. It fit perfectly in this mount. I didn't have to modify anything as far as the mount. You guys know the drill, what to do with the wiring to make it work. Now, I deleted the air pump like I said I was going to. See, it's gone. Here's the belt number in case you want to do that. But a word of warning, you can't just bypass the air pump. You have to at least get rid of the pulley, because this replacement belt, the path it takes it right across the pulley. So yeah, I mean, at the bare minimum you got to get the pulley off, but I went ahead, I had pulled this bracket off anyway. I went ahead and pulled the pump off. I even trimmed the tabs off of the bracket and ground them down nice and smooth. I don't know why I'm that way, but yeah, down there where nobody will ever see it. I'm that way when I fabricate stuff too. Even in little areas where there's a sharp corner or something where nobody's ever going to see it or even likely ever get their hand against it working on it, I always grind those smooth. I'm funny that way. Anyway, now there was something I wanted to try to do. I wanted to try to take one of these big electric fans, and we'll just use this shroud as an example, even though it's not the right one. I was going to try, well, to put it into the shroud like that. Actually, here's a proper shroud over here. We'll set it down so you can see what I was dealing with. I was going to put that fan in there using threaded rod, like 6 of them, maybe 8. And fasten it to that, and then fill that with some sort of foam or something. But as it turns out, as usual, there was not enough room between the shroud here and the water pump. So it's back to the old school style fan. But I did get rid of the clutch fan. I hate clutch fans. They've always let me down in the past. I know these flex fans, they kind of heat up horsepower and mileage, but boy, they sure do move a lot of air. I had it running earlier. No leaks in the coolant system, and it will actually hold a shop towel up to the grill running. Now, most of my time this evening, tonight, morning, whatever you want to call it, was doing this. While I was underneath there working on the rear end, putting that limited slip in, I noticed there were some spots in them where it was actually rusted through on both sides. So they probably would have been okay to try this out initially, but I thought, what the hell, now's the best time to do it while there's no bed on it. I didn't record it. It wasn't much any different than those. Same concept. Knocked the rivets out, bolted on, and put new bushings in the spring eyes too. No big deal. Well, folks, it's been probably, I'm guessing, about 6 weeks since I worked on the truck. I had a lot going on in my life. I won't bore you with the details, but today's the day I get back after it. Got a trip coming up here in a couple weeks. I don't think I'm going to have this ready for it. That's okay. The van's still going for now, but as you can see, it's sat long enough that it's had a bunch of shit collected all over it. Picked up this muffler at a swap meet a couple weeks ago. I think I'm going to try to use that. Anyway, enough with the yibber yabber and let's get to work. Here is the lovely finished result. Made up of basically scraps I had sitting around. Other than the muffler, I paid 30 bucks for that at the Lawrence, Kansas swap meet. I'm pretty happy with that. Man, I was really hoping today to get to this hitch. Just have a vice grip in place. But as usual, I'm out of time. Maybe I can get to this tomorrow. Got other stuff to do tomorrow as well. So as usual, it's a couple days later. Let's get after this hitch. It's kind of a crucial part of a tow rig, you know. There's this gooseneck hitch I'm going to try to get in there too, but that'll come later. Now, I don't know what this is off of, to be honest. For some reason, I'm thinking it was from a late 80s F250 I parted out years ago, but I could be totally wrong about that. The good thing about it is the width is perfect for this frame, but you can see these little divots here, and those are meant to go around this rivet. Well, if I do that, that places this bolt hole perilously close to the edge of the frame, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do, I did measure these across, and those are the exact as these. So I'm going to knock these rivets out and use those as my starting point. Alright, got the back two in. I made these totally overkill washers here because I didn't want them pulling through the frame. Made them out of some remnants of an old 70s, early 80s era grill guard. Now, I'm finding another problem with this hitch. It's definitely not for this truck. See if I can get down in here and show you. See that? There's a slight little curve in the frame. It's not going to allow it to seat very well. Not a big deal. Back here, this back bolt will be fine. But there, that middle one, I suppose I'll just have to cut an appropriately thick piece of metal and put that in there to clamp her down real good. There we go, not bad. It's taking a lot more time than I thought. Mostly just to cut all these damn big ass washers out. But this is one side done, gotta do the other now. I have an issue with the cooling system that I almost forgot about because I hadn't worked on this for so long. When I had it running last time and was, you know, checking to make sure the system was pressurizing and flowing and everything, there was a couple of things going on. Number one, if you remember the original radiator in here, and when I opened it up and it had all that, you know, rust residue in there, there was still a shitload of that in the engine. So I wasted all that nice new antifreeze putting it in here because it just totally contaminated it. So I need to flush out the engine a couple of times and get some antifreeze in there. And the other thing that was happening, when it got warmed up, I noticed it was blowing hot air here for a couple of minutes. Then all of a sudden it would go cold for a couple minutes, and then it would go hot for a couple minutes, and then cold for a couple minutes. I think what was going on, the thermostat is working, it's just not opening nice and slowly and gradual. There's something in there catching, and is banging open, and then banging shut every couple of minutes. So yeah, that's a good enough reason to open the cooling system to check out that thermostat. Alright, so to try to get all this rust flushed out of here, wow, that was a hell of an ordeal. I flushed this thing out at least, well, I know I did it 10 times because I filmed every one of them because I wanted to do a comparison as each went on and on and on. And I thought at 10 it was pretty good. So I went ahead, took the thermostat housing off, and I was going to put the thermostat in. I thought, what the hell? I drove it back over to the hydrant, jammed the hose in there with the lower radiator hose undone, and I flushed a shitload more of rusty water out of there. Thought, okay, that's got to be it. But put the thermostat in, put a new temperature sending unit in, so the temperature gauge works now. By the way, this was the old thermostat. It looks okay, but yeah, the new one does work. It actually warms up smoothly and stays warm instead of kicking back and forth to cold and warm. But anyway, once I had that in there, I was just curious, so I did it again, filled it up with water, warmed it up, and dumped it, and I was still getting rusty water out of it. Granted, it was not terrible, but it just wasn't as clean as I would have liked. Maybe I'm being too picky about it. I think I flushed it out another, I don't know, 6 or 7 times, and then finally I just gave up. Felt like I was wasting my time. I went ahead and went to town and got some of this, put it in there, and I'm going to run it probably for a week or so, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know, at least the first time I do a good heavy tow with it and get the thing good and warmed up, and go through a couple of heat and cooling cycles, dump it out, and then I'll put some fresh antifreeze in it. Yeah, I had a lot of footage. It was just easier to explain what happened than to bore you with all that footage of me dumping water out of the radiator constantly. But anyway, now that that is kind of addressed, or on the way of being addressed, let's move on to something else. Well, this turned out to be substantially more hideous than I had pictured it in my head. Anyway, got tow hooks for the moment when this two-wheel drive inevitably does need some assistance. And honestly, I didn't really put the bumper on as a bumper. It was just more of that was just a convenient way to mount the license plate. In retrospect, maybe I should have just cut some holes in the bumper for the hooks to fit through, but that bumper, it was all rusted out along these bottom edges anyway. If I had a nice bumper, I guess I would reconsider that, but I don't. Maybe if I come across one, then someday I'll do that. Alright, so this is visually, it's not bolted on yet, it's just sitting there. This is visually where I like the bed, but unfortunately I'm going to have to run it a little bit higher, about an inch higher, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I get this thing heavily loaded, I can see the potential for the tire to get into the flatbed frame here. So another inch of lift will get a little more clearance there, a little more peace of mind. Another thing is, I initially wanted to put this gooseneck hitch that I got. You saw me dig it out of my scrap rack over there. I cut this off of a late 80s F250 years ago. I initially wanted to weld that to the bed somehow, but the framework underneath there doesn't really lend itself to that. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the frame just like it was here. You can see I just basically cut the frame of the truck that I took it off of. So this is going to take a little work getting all that chunk of frame cleaned off of there. But that extra inch that the bed's going to sit up higher is going to allow me to sit this on the frame, where you can see there is not room for that now. Now I pulled the gooseneck out there out of the weeds, did some measuring. My gooseneck has torsion axles under it, so it's kind of important to try to keep the gooseneck running level. For tire wear and axle wear, even loading and whatnot. So I did some measuring on that. I need the ball to be about, the top of the ball to be about 39 inches high, roughly. Accounting for a little bit of squat once there's weight on it. Now, this is going to sit way in there. what I've come up with for a solution to that. I have no idea where I came up with this removable ball at, but I've got it. What I'm going to do, look out, kitty. I'm going to remove this ball, which is going to be a challenge. I'm probably going to have to torch that open a little bit more so I can get a socket on that and impact it out of there, and then I'll just cover this over. And then I'm going to take this ball like that, but I'm not just going to weld it to that because it would end up sticking up through the bed a little bit, which isn't necessarily a problem, but I would like it to be removable to where I could put something flat in here without that ball sticking up. Doing this combination, it's going to end up sticking up about 40 inches here. Not a huge deal. It's getting it reasonably close. Now, in order to make this removable, I'm going to use this chunk of Super Duty frame and basically make a box that that ball will fit in. Then I'll gust it up accordingly, drill some holes in it, and have it retain the nice big grade 8 bolt. So that went a lot slicker than I thought it would. It actually took more time to get all these edges ground and cleaned up for the welds than it did to get those old chunks of frame off of there. I'm sure you viewers out there underestimate my talents at times, and so did I in this one. Now let's see what I can do about getting that ball off of there. Kitty's waiting for some kibble. Let's see what we got for you here. There you go. Bon appetit, mofo. So I didn't even think of this till I started torching on it, but yeah, once I got started I got to thinking maybe that's welded in there, and sure enough it is. They must have welded the nut to it before they welded in this bottom piece. So it looks like I won't be able to remove the nut, but I will try to get the ball out of there. I'm pretty much going to have to. The fact that I found out this nut was welded kind of gives me a possible another option here. I've got this other hitch ball that is a little bit taller than the one I just took out, but not quite as tall as this one. I could make up for that in the adjustability on the tongue of the trailer, but I don't know, the threads on that hitch over there might be all galled up as hard as that came out. I'm going to let that piece over there cool down, get this bed back off of here and start prepping the frame for welding. Once that cross member's cooled off, then I'll be able to investigate whether this is a more viable option than this. Cross member's cooled off enough I can handle it. Got it all cleaned up, ready to weld here, but I found another problem with my plan B here. Shank is nowhere near small enough to fit through there, so it's back to plan A. Build a receiver for that. Get this backed up to the shop there so I can weld this out of the wind. It's kind of breezy out here today. All welded on there. That is not welded on. I just wanted to bring it out here, give it a test fit, see how bad my math was. Back up here and show you. The trailer weight is sitting on the truck. Didn't really squat it or move it any that I could tell, but it seems to sit fairly level. I think there's actually a bow in this trailer, especially back here. So yeah, I can live with that. So I'm going to follow through with building a receiver for this little hitch ball thing that I got here. Another thing I just noticed, I know these twin I-beams and twin traction beam Fords, when you back them up, the tires will bow like this to a certain degree. I have never seen one quite this bad, so I think I need to be looking at that front end. Might be needing some ball joints. Well, that's all for today, folks. We'll get back to this later. My baby cake's told me that I need to take her out for birthday dinner. When she says that, I say, yes, ma'am. All right, it is the next day once again. Back out here in the shop. I went and saw that Furiosa movie. It's called Furiosa because we got a cat we call Furiosa. But anyway, went and saw the Furiosa movie last night after we went to dinner. It was a bit of a disappointment. But we'll leave it at that. Back to work. Alright, let's take a look at my bed mounts. Pretty simple, just a few pieces of angle iron bolted to the original holes in the frame. I had to flip the very rear ones the other way because there wasn't really much room to get in here and weld. Now, I got the tail lights and the trailer wiring and the lights up there all done, but man, it took me like a week to do that because my back was really ganked up. It was all I could do just to do that wiring. And I got the trailer brake controller in there done, all that wire strung. By the end of that week, I was feeling healthy enough to wrestle that empty toolbox on there. Now let me talk about flatbeds. I think they're stupid. Not because of their looks. I think on most trucks they look good. It made this truck look great. It all depends on the style of the truck. No, I hate flatbeds because of the idea that you have to tie every damn thing down on them. But the bed on this was hashed. I got some other parts trucks with a little better beds, but the colors would have looked awful in a mismatch. And I'm no show truck kind of guy, but still, I thought, what the hell, the flatbed will look better. Plus, even though I hate the idea of having to tie things down, I must admit, what the flatbed that this came off of, or the truck that this flatbed came off of, when we took it to that swap meet, damn, it was handy having that much square footage of bed space. And plus, as you can see, it makes a hell of a handy workbench area. Been working on this rig for the past couple of days. And yeah, this has just been invaluable for workbench area. So that's why I thought I'd go ahead and give a flatbed a fair shake, because I've never really utilized one other than that trip to that swap meet. Now then, I've also got, this is the fluid I drained out of the transmission. I almost forgot to check that. Yeah, that's pretty nasty looking. To replace that, I got online and I looked. I was looking for the capacity of what this ZF5 would hold. And I stumbled across people just praising this stuff. And yeah, MT90, you might be thinking that's a 90 weight gear oil, but not really. It's not really terribly thick. So I thought I'd give it a shot. I'm just going to pour the whole damn gallon in it. I'm just going to pull the shifter out of the top and pour it in there. A little extra won't hurt nothing. Tie rods all appear to be pretty good shape, and I'm going to give them all a shot of grease. Looks like another fail. Going wheeling this weekend, I was hoping to use this, but I don't think so. I think I want to go ahead and get those ball joints fixed first. Especially driver's side didn't bother me too much. Passenger side, yeah, that's a little bit more slop than I'm comfortable with. Sure hope this truck is worth all this effort. I got a good feeling about it though. Well, as usual, it's a couple days later. It's been more than a couple. I got the truck up in the air, got the knuckles off. I decided to do all 4 ball joints while I had it apart. And there they are. I went ahead and I went and bought this ball joint press at Harbor Freight, and I got the little accessory kit to go with it, and this was definitely the way to go for these particular knuckles. I think you might have been able to do it with these. Problem is kind of these cups were kind of too long for this clamp. I think I used this one, that one, I don't know, a couple of the ones just mainly because they were shorter, but glad I got that. Now, I didn't go ahead and film any of this. There's other videos out there on YouTube that are easy to find that show you how to put ball joints in these knuckles using this tool. So I decided to forego that because this video is getting too long as it is. But anyway, I'm going to get these slapped back on there. I'm going to go ahead and repack the wheel bearings. And that's probably all I'm going to have time for today. Alright, everything's scrubbed up, looking good. Even the seals are looking pretty good, so I'm just going to reuse those. Let's get to re-greasing everything. Okay, so I went and took this for a drive this afternoon. I went out and drove for maybe 20 minutes or so. Everything seems to be good except for two things. Number one, it darts all over the place. And number two, I was getting a pinging going up hills. Got to check the alignment here. And for the pinging, I'm going to check the timing. Now, I tried to get this in the driveway as straight as I could, reasonably. Looks like the driver's side maybe, just maybe, is towed in just a touch, or maybe it's just my imagination. I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up. Passenger side is definitely towed in. Now, I don't think it was from redoing the ball joints, because the eccentrics that are in the upper ball joint on these ones are not adjustable. But, yeah, I don't know if it's picking up, but I can definitely see a big difference in the passenger side. And I'm betting it might be that the tie rod is probably just a little bit tweaked from whatever caused this little bit of crash damage. So anyway, let's get busy with that. So here's the method to my madness. I've got this little doohickey for doing this. Now, the way you saw me make the lines on the tire with the piece of tape and the Sharpie, those do not have to match side to side, but they do have to match on each tire front to back. So that's what that was all about. Like I said, it doesn't have to, you don't have to get the line in the same spot on both tires, just front to back on each tire. Okay, I've got it set on the marks. This is the front. I'll reposition the bar and we'll show you how it looks on the back. Alright, near as I can tell, it's pretty well centered there. Maybe off just a touch. But the true tail is going to come in the other side. Pow! Not even close. That is what? 1.5 inches off? Alright, I've already got this tie rod all loosened up. Where is it? Where is it? There we go. It's all loosened up, ready to go. Alright, I think I got it where I'm happy with it after a couple of distractions. The tool is set to where the lines are on the back side of the tires, and here it is on the front. So it is just ever so slightly towed in, about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. Cat's after something. What'd you get, kitty? Nothing? There's just a couple birds fighting over here, got her attention. Maybe next time. Look at this kitty. She had her ears frostbitten off. You pull away from me, you know me. I don't know if the steering wheel is going to end up straight. Probably not, but at this point, that's really pretty much an insignificant concern anyway. As long as she goes straight down the road. Alright, so when I checked this, I found it had about 6 degrees before top dead center. I changed it up to 12. Yeah, so maybe that pinging hopefully was not an ignition related pinging, because I actually gave it more advance, obviously. Now when you do this, you got to make sure to pull your little, I don't remember what the hell that thing's called, but basically there's a connection here that when you pull this little plug out, it disables the computer doing anything with the timing. So then all you're doing is messing with your static, and then you put that back in when you're done. Unfortunately, I broke the tabs off it, as those always do, and so I just got a zip tie holding it in there for now. Now, as you saw, I was using a pry bar to change that, because that distributor, thankfully it wasn't completely stuck, but it wasn't wanting to move. So I was able to get the pry bar in there right like that and just give it little tweaks. But I think she's done for now. Hopefully I can give her a test tomorrow afternoon. I got some scrap I want to get hauled out of here. All right, it's the next afternoon. It's a sweltering one. I am drenched with sweat here. As you can see, we're all loaded up. This is the old bed. It is full of scrap. There's a 6.9 diesel in there, a Chevy small block, a Yamaha, just all sorts of crap. Here's my scrap trailer. It's also pretty much overloaded. There's 40 pounds of pressure in these tires, and these kind of worry me because this is a scrap trailer. It sits around a lot, and they are dry rotted as hell. So I'm going to go nice and slow. Now, I drove this to work last night and got it fueled up. Drove pretty good. It wandered a little bit, but it wasn't darting all over. So I'm feeling good about it. Ran great. The pinging was gone. But yeah, the only thing left that I'm worried about now is the clutch. Putting a load on it. How's it going to do? So today's the day we're going to find out. If it does good today, I have a vehicle I might be going after in a couple days from now. But I got to shut up and get it going. Good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, there's some concrete blocks and you're just pushing them forward. That's fine. Apparently that was 2.74 tons, $110 a ton. Cars are currently $135 a ton. It was a much better price than I was expecting, which netted me $301.40. This calls for a celebration. I hit the spot on a hot day. Alright, on the way home, I am sad to report the squirreliness is still here. My theory of what is going on, whatever caused that crash damage up on the front passenger corner, bent the tie rod a little bit. And the bend in the tie rod is making the steering forces not transfer efficiently. Basically, the bow in the tie rod is probably, hold on a second, it's making the tie rod rock like this instead of just pushing it. I'll look into that. I do have a parts truck out in the weeds. It should have the same tie rods as this. I was thinking about dragging it up to the shop anyway to pull some other parts. If the tie rods are good on that, I'm just going to put it on here. Other than that, it's doing pretty good. Other than my speedometer seems to be demonically possessed. Every once in a while it'll settle down enough to let me know how fast I'm going. That might be my fault. I think I might have tweaked the tone ring on the ring and pinion that the speedometer reads off of. So I'm back on gravel now. Oh my God, it's damn near frightening driving this thing. It just darts all over the place unexpectedly. I did stop and check. Nothing's falling apart. I don't know what in the hell is going on. Might bear a closer inspection when I get home. Maybe there's something going on with the suspension that I haven't noticed. And I was driving back home, I got to thinking it just feels like it's not in the front. It feels like it's the ass end. So I crawled underneath here looking to see if maybe the frame was bent, broken leaf spring, although as long as I've been working on this thing without a bed on it, you would think I would notice a broken leaf spring or the frame bent or something back here. So yeah, I kind of just looked that over real quick. Crawled around underneath it up here looking for broken frame. Couldn't find anything. Then I got back here and I grabbed the flatbed and just started shaking and looking, and looky there. It's always those simple stupid things that get you. Well, the wheel is clearly ruined, but luckily I went to an auction yesterday and I bought 2 of those wheels with the same size tire. Yeah, it kind of goes without saying, I do feel pretty stupid about that, because that thought entered my mind a couple of days ago when I was working on it. I should check those lug nuts on the rear, and then I totally forgot about it. Well, you might remember this dismal failure of a truck. Why drag up another parts truck when I got the one over there? Well, the one over there I already showed. I've promised the rear axle out of that to Monty. And even more important, if I hadn't promised to him, it wouldn't matter, because that's a Dana 70 axle. I need a Sterling axle. I'm just going to take the whole hub off of this. Damn shame. Look at all those new brakes I put on that last summer. If I were smart, I'd take all these off, the new brakes, and put them on this. But I'm not smart. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and get back to work. Well, folks, the time is nigh to finally put this thing to a real towing test. I think it's ready. As you can see, I got the gooseneck on there, so that means I'm going to be hauling a pretty serious load. Let's take a look at what's on the gooseneck. Yeah, look at that. I hope I got that situated right on the trailer for weight distribution. Got to take that down, deliver it to Aaron. We went to a auction last weekend, and he bought so much stuff he couldn't haul all of it home in his truck, so I took this home for him. I'm going to take it over there to him today.
I tricked you.
Bought these 2 little cream puffs off of Aaron. Of course, I wasn't coming down here just to deliver that little trailer. I'm going to try to use these brakes off of both of these for my M151 and that little flat fender I got. I got them cheap enough that, yeah, this one, the engine's all tore apart. This one's all mostly together, supposedly needs a clutch. But, yeah, I don't know if I would ever want to mess around with one of these. I got too many other things to do as it is. Here you go. 1, 2, $300.
$300. Yay! I can go to the swap meet now.
Which one?
I don't know. Are we going to Iowa?
I'm not real thrilled about it. I was just kind of seeing if anybody else was. So. All right. I am happy to report that the truck is living up to my expectations. Will it hang with a modern truck? Of course not, but it's doing just great for a 90s era 460. My biggest problem right now is I didn't know this rain was supposed to hit us. And this thing really needs wiper blades. It has just enough left, but it's not scratching the windshield, so I can hardly see anything. But it's pulling great. But granted, a couple of 4-wheel drive wheeling rigs is going to be a lot heavier than a couple of Geo tractors. And so far, I've been able to pull every hill without downshifting out of overdrive. I'm sure that's going to change with some heavier vehicles, but it's still a far cry better than my poor old tired van. That van, it was not unusual. Actually, it was pretty damn common for that tired old thing. It would have to downshift going up hills just with an empty trailer a lot of times. The jumping speedometer has not gone away. It's still there. I'm going to solve that by just keeping my eyes peeled for a good sized tack and a swap meet. Mount that in here, and because this is a manual transmission, I'll be able to correlate the RPMs to a miles per hour speed and mark it on the tack. The fuel gauge, I knew that was going to be off, but it's off a lot more than I thought. When it gets down, starting to get down below half a tank, that's when you need to fill up. If I'm not mistaken, this is an 18-gallon tank, and I've let it go just slightly below half. I filled up and I put 15 gallons in it. So I can live with that as far as knowing when to fill up. She's a thirsty girl though. I think I figured up pulling the empty trailer, I was getting almost 11. So I don't know what I'm going to get. It's going to suck with only one tank. I'm having to pull over a lot for fuel stops. But, it's just going to have to do. I'm pretty happy with it. Now, I am going to miss all that interior space from my van. But I tell you what I really like about this truck, that manual transmission. And this is just, there's something just right about a tow rig with a manual transmission. I think me and this truck are going to get along just fine. Anyway, because it's raining, I better concentrate on my driving. Sorry this video was so long. I edited a lot out that I really didn't want to, but just trying to keep it to a decent length. But thanks for watching, and until next time.
Watch out for your cornhole, bud.